Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of the day or evening you're watching this recording today. Sid from Sid Sticks, I'm back. It's been a little while, but we got an interview today, and I'm excited about this one here. It's a gentleman I played against in high school when he was back many moons ago. I hate to admit we're getting old, but back 40 years ago now. Um, this gentleman started his hockey in a small town of St. Malo, Manitoba, moved on to Steinbach, a little bit of Steinbach, and then ended up in Warroad, as I always jokingly say, the evil neighbor down the road to East Roseau there for 1 year, and then went out to the Dub to play in the Dub, where he had a nice career. I think they won the Memorial Cup, and also was, I think, the MVP of the Memorial Cup, which is going on right now, as a matter of fact. From there, he was drafted by Quebec, played a little bit of Quebec, and had a nice career in the minors, and finished up his career over in Europe in the German league there, playing for Hanover Scorpions. And I won't try to pronounce the other one, Colder, I believe, but we'll talk a little bit about that. And then from there, has a outstanding career in coaching. He's been coaching since 2009, ever since. Started out with the Kelowna Rockets, out in the Dub. Helped out with the World Hockey Championship there, the U17s. Actually assisted with the Sabres and the Merrick's, Spokane Predators, and now, as of late, with the Calgary Flames. I'm very excited to bring in Dan Lambert, now of the Calgary Flames. Dan, you got me?
I've got you, Sid. Nice to be on your show. Looking forward to it.
Well, I'm happy to bring you on. It's been many years. It's hard to believe, going back to the days in high school in Warroad there, and then also in the Vita Cowboys. We played a little baseball in the summer up there too, as a matter of fact, with your brothers, Guy and Mark. That was quite an experience to say the least too. So it was fun. So I'm glad you could come on.
Well, yeah, the good old days for sure.
The good old days. Well, let's do, like I say, I wanted to, I always start kind of where it all started with people. I like to say, where'd you come from? And it's always important to know our roots, right? Well, this little arena here, I'm going to throw this up, and the exterior there, I believe that's the St. Malo Ice Arena there in St. Malo, Manitoba. Can you tell me a little bit about, where it all started there, and then where you moved on to? I think you said Steinbach in a couple hours, and you ended up in Warroad for 1 year. So talk about your roots there growing up there in St. Malo.
Wow. Going back to St. Malo, I my dad used to make a rink beside the house, and it was more for my older brothers. They're 4 and 5 years older than I am, but at 2 years old, I started skating with them and just didn't ever want to come off the ice, and just loved it. My parents had to literally force me off the ice. They tell me to go to the bathroom and then send me right out there. And those Manitoba winters aren't that cold either. So I guess it hardens a guy a little bit. Played, and then I started playing hockey, played there till I was 11, or maybe even 10 or 11. And then I moved on to Steinbach. Really enjoyed,
Hey,
well,
Dan, you got,
I,
oh,
I
shit.
really wanted, are you good? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm having a little breakup here. I apologize. I think the interweb is a little slower. I'm looking at my dots on the Wi-Fi, and it's down a little bit. So, but
Okay.
got you back.
Okay, good. Um, yeah, I played in St. Malo till I was 10 or 11, and then I went on to Steinbach where the competition was, a little better and got to play against Winnipeg teams and so on. Played there for a few years. Then I went to St. Anne for 1 year, and that's where Jude Bullion, who actually was my coach, and I believe
Okay.
his son used to run the arenas in Warroad, ironically, in the last maybe 10 years or so. Anyway, Jude is the one that we went to a tournament in Warroad or a couple games and mentioned to people that I didn't have a place to play the following season, which is how and why I ended up in Warroad. And yeah, I went there for a year. So it was a interesting childhood, that's for sure.
Yeah, you had a nice little career there. One year there was a 36 points I see in 21 games. Not bad, and only 10 minutes and penalties too. So you were a scorer, but not a ruffian, so to speak, right?
Was that in Warroad?
Yeah, it said 36
Oh
points.
wow.
I just looked at your stats there, and I'm like, not a bad year. You probably got one or two of them against myself as well. I'm assuming, more than likely dishing it off to those guys you had playing on your team there, or you probably blew one by me as well. A lot of guys did
I,
that in their day.
Ironically, what's funny is I was on our team in Warroad. I was probably sixth or seventh in scoring. We had a lot of guys who put up a lot of points. We had a great team that year.
Yes, you did. Unfortunately, you got upset that year in the quarters, which was a surprise. But that's hockey. That's why you play the games on ice, not on paper, right? But
Absolutely, yeah. It was, yes, I remember that game very well.
seems to me we always remember the losses that end of the season, unfortunately, and then we remember the ones that we won too a lot more. And we'll talk about that when we go into the Memorial Cup. So from there, then, how do you end up in the dub? I mean, were they recruiting you out there? I mean, was there numbers teams that you ended up at Swift Current, or how do you end up out in there in the dub?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a story. I'll just try to shorten it. Over the summer, after my season in Warroad, I was back then there was no draft. You were just you people or teams had your rights. And I remember getting a call from Ken Hitchcock, who was in Kamloops at the time, and that's who owned my rights. And he asked me if I wanted to come play um, in the Western League. And honestly, I didn't know a whole lot about the Western League. And I said, no, I have no interest. My plan is to go to college. And so, make a long story short, they traded my rights to Swift Current, who was a new team, and they put a little bit more of an effort and came to visit me and really tried to convince me to come there. They flew me over there and we looked around and met my potential billets and so on and so forth. And at that point is when I made a decision that I wanted to be a hockey player, and I felt that that was going to give me my best opportunity at that time. I really enjoyed Warroad, had a great time there, but I felt like the hockey season was very short, and I wasn't that into playing football and all the other sports. So um, anyway, I just made the
Yep.
decision. It wasn't an easy one, but it was a one that I made, and I honestly don't regret.
Well, Dan, look at the stats there at Swift Current. What 66 points, 83, and then that final year, right? The one year you had 102 points. Is that the year you guys won it? I think you guys won it out there one of those years where you're out there, correct?
Yeah, that's the year we won it at over 100 points. And I mean, we had a great team. Obviously, you don't win the Memorial Cup by not having a good team. And I remember Cal Marvin actually came to Saskatoon to watch me play, which I thought was a great touch.
Yeah, good old Cal. He always had that hat on and trench coat and the stogie in the mouth there up there in the top of the Papal Palace, as I call it, sitting up there. And anytime I walk into the ring, super save, how you doing? Super set. He's a legend. He was a legend. The Godfather of
Absolutely.
hockey there on the road.
Yes. Yeah, he was a great man, and had an influence in me getting to Warroad, and obviously got to play with Izzy, Cal's son, and Izzy and I still talk today, so it's good relationships.
Now, on that team, by the way, if I remember one of those years, you played with a Famer, by the way, as well, if I recall. I mean, looking at those rosters, and the likes of Mr. Sakic. Can you tell me a little bit about him, playing with him?
Yeah, actually, Joe and I and Sheldon Kennedy all lived together at our billets. We did that for a couple seasons, and then we obviously Joe was a superstar at a young age in the NHL and continued throughout. But whenever I would get called up or training camps or whatever, I would usually stay with him. And when I got called up or whatever, and not every time, but often. Anyways, yeah, to this day, I mean, Joe's an unbelievable human. What you see is what you get. He's super. Like just a level-headed person, and the stardom and all the success he's had hasn't changed him at all. He's still the same Joe, and um, amazing hockey player, but even better person.
I'm having some issues. I know I was down this way earlier. I apologize, Dan. You got me back, so it's been kind of frustrating. I'm watching my little dots on there, and it goes up and down. But you're back now, so you got me.
Okay, I can hear you, but you do freeze every once in a while.
Yeah, yeah, I apologize for that. I know I saw something this morning earlier. I don't know what was going on. I got T-Mobile. I love them to death. These guys do a wonderful job with my cell phone and that, but I also have an internet, so I apologize for that. But we're back. Yeah, so we'll go through it. Maybe we'll kind of have a little shortened version of our interview here, but we'll do the best we can. You gotta love technology at times, but
Yes.
hey, we didn't have when we were back in the day. We didn't have these computers on our phones, so back in the day, you had to actually go watch a game. You couldn't watch film on people because now they got all these video things and stats. It's crazy out there.
Yeah, it's the world of technology has changed in a drastic way since we were in high school and everything else. It's crazy. I mean,
Absolutely. Ab-
yeah.
Absolutely. So that lends me to I'm gonna pull up, you played out there, you won the Memorial Cup, you played with Sakic, and I wanted to throw something up here. This picture here from there, look at this guy right here. Look at that young man there. You were drafted by the Quebec Nordiques. Look at that guy. Um, so what did that mean? I think everybody's goal is like, you're from French background, you speak French, right? Playing in Quebec, either Montreal or Quebec. I mean, what was that like to be able to be part of that culture, going to the NHL and being drafted by the Quebec Nordique?
You know, it's so well, first of all, I think my Memorial Cup is probably what really helped me get drafted, period, because small defensemen back then didn't get drafted very often. Um, anyway, and then getting drafted to Quebec was very special because of my French background, but also because Joe was already playing there. So, I right away that gave me some comfort. And then, going to training camps and all of that was amazing because I guess I had no idea what was going on as far as their rebuild, but their rebuild at the time was pretty special. My
Mhm.
I went through, guys like Matt Sundin, Owen Nolan, obviously Joe Sakic. I mean, all of these guys that ended up being superstars in the National Hockey League, and they were all 19, 20, 21 when I got an opportunity to play my few games that I did play. So it was pretty special. Adam Foote was there as well. I mean, there's so many names, but yeah, it was amazing. You could tell that there was a lot of losses at that time, but it was going to turn as these young players got better. And then, obviously the move, well, I got traded before the move to Colorado, but the move to Colorado, I think, really gave them, as an organization, an opportunity to make some other moves. Patrick Roy, for example, and
Yeah,
they go on to move Stanley Cups. I don't know if it would have happened if they stayed in Quebec. You know, Unbelievable fans. For me, it wasn't, the language
yeah, it's
was
hard to
not a
say.
barrier.
Hard to say.
Yeah, yeah. For me, yeah, the language wasn't a barrier at all, obviously, but for some players it was hard, because if you've ever been to Quebec City, I mean, it's French speaking everywhere. So, but for me, it was great, loved it, and yeah, it was I got to play a few games when I was
In
21.
Montreal, that's about as French. That's about as French as you can get, right? A guy like
Right. So yeah, it was
so.
special. It was special.
You, you, I mean, you were able to play in the NHL. You said, well, I don't know how many games it was, but just to be in the NHL is a lot to be said. I mean, there's not many guys do that.
I just lost you, Sid. My bars are full.
That's having trouble connecting. I'm back here. Sorry. Like I said, it's my internet for some reason it's really wacky today. But I was going to show you a picture here when you in the minors. I had to throw this one up here. Let me throw this. How about that stash you got there? That's the 70 stash there.
That was, I don't know why and how I managed to grow that, but it's that year I ended up playing with two, well, at that time, certainly for me, they were hockey legends. Bruce Boudreau, who obviously went on to coach in the National
Yep.
Hockey League, and John Anderson, who had scored, I believe, 30 or 40 goals for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And they were in their 30s, and I was 20. So it was, and those guys sure made hockey fun. They had, good attitudes. They helped me through my first year of pro hockey, and yeah, they were awesome. Again, you meet so many great people in this game, and they were two characters, that's for sure.
You beat me to the punch because I was going to bring up Bruce Boudreau, excuse me, and John Anderson because I showed a little mustache you had. John Anderson had like a Lanny McDonald type of mustache. That thing was big red there. Remember him with the
Yes,
Leafs? Oh boy. Um,
absolutely.
but so after that, like I said, you played with them, and then you went on. You played in the I for quite a few years. You were out there, the captain actually, of the Los Angeles Ice Dogs. So how was you talked about different culture, right? Playing in Quebec, playing in Midwest, and up in Canada, and you go to L.A. What was that like? You talk about two different worlds from Quebec to L.A. playing out there in Los Angeles.
Yeah, so the how it went is I signed in San Diego first. In San Diego, um, we moved the team to LA, the LA Sports Arena, which was an experience. And then from there, we went to Long Beach. So in all, I was with that organization because there was ownership change as well in that time. Um, and played 5 years in California. And honestly, it was awesome. Um, I was married then. I met my high school sweetheart in Swift Current, which is another reason that going there was the right thing. And we got married and then had our first and second child and children in San Diego and then Long Beach. So it was amazing. You didn't have to bundle your kids up to go outside. You just threw some shorts or diapers and shorts on them and walked along the beach. And it was an amazing, amazing life for a guy from St. Malo who the first time I saw a palm tree was actually my first pro game with the Fort Wayne Comets was in San Diego. So it's just a wild, when you think of back then, life was a little different, it was a little harder to travel and all that fun stuff. So, um, and the first palm tree I saw, I was like, man, I'd love to play here one day. And, it's just, and a few years later I was.
Lo and behold, then you got the place. That's awesome. So, yeah, pretty cool. So
Yeah.
after that, going beach there, yeah, then you go across the pond. You played several years in 1999, 2000, and finished up in 2009. So 10 years over in Europe. So that, I mean, you're a worldly traveler. I mean, you're able to see, excuse me, different parts of the United States, North America, then you're over there in Europe. So I've heard it's, people that have played over there, and it's quite the experience. So can you tell a bit about how that went for you and how it developed you, your hockey from there going into coaching? What was playing in, the German league like then?
Yeah. So, you know, I was 29 when I went to Europe, and I honestly thought, okay, I'm getting older. We had two kids, and and there's a lot of travel in the minors back then, and whether it was flying or busing, whatever, it was still you were gone a lot, and it was hard on our family. So we decided we'll give friends of ours had played in Germany and they were talking to how great it was. So oddly enough, they opened up like there used to be just four imports, but then they opened it right up. I think there was 16 imports of you could sign on each team. So started talking to a few teams, um, and it was hard to leave Long Beach because I had such a good relationship with ownership, management, the coaches. Well, Coach GM was the same guy, John Van Boxmeer, and you know, John was a hard coach, but we had a decent relationship, good relationship. I was the captain of the team, so anyway, decided to give Europe a try, and I thought I'm going to go for 1 year. Just go for a year and see what it's like. Signed in Cologne, where like there was a lot of old pros, Corey Millen on our team. Oh gosh, I'm drawing a blank here, but a lot of really good hockey players, and we had a great team. Anyway, played there for a year, then signed with a different team in Krefeld. we ended up winning the championship there, and they hadn't won in 50 some years, and that was a great experience as well. Um, and life was so easy there that we decided we are going to have another child. So we actually our youngest daughter was born there in Germany. So you know, the honestly, and when I say I went there for one and stayed for 10, because just the hockey life was so much easier. You know, played 56 games, bigger ice surface, a lot easier on the body, even though I was slowing down as far as my speed, my head was still fine, was able to play. And then yeah, um kept playing there, and every year my wife would say, "Ah, I may as well go again," you know, and luckily I had a wife that was very supportive, and you know, we really appreciated. And I don't know, I think I just kept playing because I was kind of delaying the inevitable that I was going to actually have to work for a living at some point. And then transitioning into hockey, just you know, or into coaching was just the logical thing to do.
Let's talk about that transition. First of all, I want to go back. You mentioned John Van Boxmeer and hard coach, because today's coaching is a lot different than it was back in the day, right? You can't do this. So that's why a guy like Torts, we talk about Torts, he's old school, and it's difficult to coach that style now. Uh, I mean, you had a lot of different guys you played with, a lot of different guys coached you. Back then and now, 30 plus years later, from coaching today, I mean, how did you start as a we went to Kelowna? Was your first coaching job there? Correct in that? Yes, the Rockets as an
Yes,
assistant.
yes, yes.
So how did that all
So
start up?
yeah, you know, um, my agent when I was in North America was a guy from Winnipeg. His name was Don Baisley. I don't know if you know the name or not, but
Hmm.
Don was a an unbelievable agent, and an unbelievable human, to be honest with you. And the fact that he took me as a client was was hard to believe. But he just really he's no longer with us, but he just supported me in every step. And even though when I signed in Europe and stuff, you know, he didn't he wasn't doing my contracts anymore, but I would always talk to him before they were signed and so on and so forth. And you know, he gave me great advice. He goes, Dan, you got a great reputation here. He goes, if you want to get into coaching, I suggest you start making phone calls. And I did that before I retired. I did that about a year before I retired. He said, everybody you know, look at every organization in the National Hockey League, every junior, and just call them all and just let them know that you are thinking about it. And you know, and it was the best advice I ever got, because just through relationships and people you'd met along the way, it
Advice you
really
did, right?
op- it really, yeah, it really opened doors for me. Um, and you know, it's amazing the people that you I don't know if I've lost you. I don't know if you can hear me, Sid.
Yeah, yeah. I'm having, it's just that darn internet. I apologize, but I was going to
Yeah.
pull up this picture. So there you are right here, by the way. Come on. I got you.
Okay. So yeah, so anyway, so one of the calls I made was my old assistant coach that was an assistant GM in Kelowna. And I told him that I was looking into coaching, and ironically, a friend of mine, uh, gosh, was an assistant coach there and was leaving, and Jeff Finley, who had played in the NHL, and anyway, he just let me know, hey, there may be an opening in Kelowna, maybe you should call Lorne. So I did that, and yeah, next thing you know, you know, I went for an interview, and they offered me the job, and it ended up being a great place to to learn to coach. Ryan Husko was the coach, and he was well, he's I'm still working under him now in Calgary, but he certainly
Okay.
paved the way for me. I didn't know Ryan at all, but you know, being just a player, and him being you know, pretty much a life coach, a lifelong coach, I should say. Yeah, it ended up being a great opportunity for me. I was an assistant under Ryan for 5 years, and learned a ton. Um, and it was an awesome experience. And then it just grew from there. And honestly, when I
Sure.
started coaching, like people have like, oh, in 5 years I want to do, like, I just wanted to be the best coach I could be, and help players become better people, to be honest with you. And at that level, I don't want to say it's easy to do, but you certainly have the opportunity to do that, because they're, those 16 to 20-year-old kids are so vulnerable, and you can, and they have a lot of questions, and they're kids,
Absolutely.
so yeah, that was a great. And then Ryan left, and I became the head coach, and I did that for 1 year, and we had a lot of success. We had an unbelievable team. Management put a great team for me, and great team together for me, and I mean, we watch it from that team, and with Josh Morrissey, who plays in Winnipeg, and Leon Draisaitl, who plays in, obviously, Edmonton, maybe two of the best players in the world right now. So it's you get to work with players like that, and to this day still have relationships with players, from that era. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's quite, a couple things regarding that Kelowna stint. You said first you were there for 5 years as assistant, then you became the head. That last year there, you guys made it to the cup, didn't you? Were you in the finals, if I remember, weren't you in the finals
Oh,
there at the Memorial Cup or close to it?
yeah, no, we were. We had an unbelievable team, and we played Oshawa in the final at the Memorial Cup. We ended up losing in overtime. Heartbreaking loss. Every time I talk to Leon, he brings it up. He's like, I can't believe we didn't win that last game, and Josh, same thing. Like, it's amazing how that's what those guys remember, is just the how great of a group we had, and the fact that we weren't able to win that last game was heartbreaking. But I'll tell you what, for me, the experience was amazing. I guess I truly learned how to manage people that year, because we made a lot of trades, and there was a lot of changes, and those are always challenging moments. And yeah, it was a great experience.
Yep. Another thing you mentioned, just kind of why it was that, dealing with the young.
Sorry, I said you're breaking up. I can't hear you.
Internet today is really wacky. I apologize, Dan. But did you hear my comment there about being able to, when you're coaching young adults in that level and youth, you're helping them become better people, and that's really why I enjoy coaching around youth today. At the pro level, it's entirely different. You got to win, right? You got to win. Not that you didn't have to win at Memorial Cup, I mean, playing in junior, but it's more so. Otherwise, your job's on the line. You see guys getting axed all the time, and that's the one thing about pro hockey. I think the coaches are of any sport, they get axed the most. I don't know how many coaches lost their jobs this year. It's unbelievable. So, can you talk a little bit about, when you went from there to the pros, the stress level? I mean, is there much? I mean, being in the pros, it's got to be a little bit more tough on the mind a little bit too, right?
Yeah, it's a different world for sure. I mean, not that you don't feel that pressure in junior, because again, people want you to, if you're not winning, you better be developing players, and there's always those challenges. And then, every player has a ceiling, and not every player you get is going to turn into a Leon Draisaitl, or Josh Morrissey,
Yep.
or but sometimes management, their projections for their draft picks or the players they get are a lot different than what reality is, or what you can bring the player to. So there are a lot of different challenges, or different pressures. You talk about pressures, and then in pro, it's a total different animal. It's you're not in control a lot of times of, and not that you are in junior, but you're not in control of management. Like, there's a lot of change in upper management, which then obviously most people want to bring in their own people, and that's just the way it is. And when I went to Buffalo, Dan Balsma is the one that helped me get there. When I was in Kelowna, he came and helped out. He had just been fired from Pittsburgh, and he came and helped out for a week in Kelowna, and we just spent a week, and it was great working with him. And I think he really liked some of the things that I did, and which is why a year later he got the job in Buffalo. And and asked if I was interested in coming with them. And it ended up being a great relationship. And then the deal was I was going to spend 1 year with Buffalo. And then the next year I was going to go coach the Amerks in the American League and be the head coach there. Unfortunately, after 1 year with the Amerks, so 2 years with the organization, 1 year with the Amerks, um, management got let go, Dan got let go, and then they brought in other people, and I was let go as well eventually. So yeah, it's a different animal than same thing happened in Nashville, where I was hired by David Poyle, and uh, Peter Laviolette was the head coach. Then John Hines came in. John kept me with him, and we had a great working relationship. And then management changed. Barry Trotz came in and got let go. Again, nothing against Barry Trotz, nothing against it's just the life that we lead. And after you get fired once, you get better at it. And it's funny, a lot of coaches called me after I got fired because I'm not going to lie to you. I was a little bit devastated. I did a lot of lawn cutting that year. Or just I would jump in my on my tractor and cut my grass, just for you know to
to
clear my
get clear
head.
the head.
And yeah, and I remember getting a lot of calls. Like I got a call from Mike Babcock, got a call. And everybody was the same thing. So now you're finally a coach. Now you know what it's like to be fired, because that's the world we live in. And then you talk to a lot of coaches. Um along the years you build relationships, and then you just talk things through. And yeah, now I've got a nice little network of people that I talk to, and got good relationships in the hockey world. And it's been amazing. I'm not gonna lie to you. And obviously now, you mentioned I'm in Calgary, and that was from a relationship from my junior days. And it's been a fun ride. Being in Calgary has been, my first year there was a lot of changes coming, and it was a new challenge. But every day is a different challenge when you're coaching the National Hockey League. And it's been, I'm gonna say it's been fun, but you talk about stress, it's super stressful. The nice thing is I'm at an age now where it's just my wife and I. My kids are grown, and they've got their lives, and so it's a lot easier to move around when it's just your wife and I and our dog. And so
Yeah. Yeah.
life, we feel now, hey, we can go anywhere. Kids are good, we can go and just make a life wherever that is. And it's, who knows, someday might take us to Europe, we don't know, right? But we'd be comfortable going anywhere.
It's been frustrating today. But if you had a dream job, what team would it be? I mean, just hypothetically, I know you're with the Flames right now. I'm just saying, if you had an opportunity to go anywhere, what would it be? You have like a dream job coaching.
Well, yeah, honestly, so if there's one thing I've learned along the way is I don't know what my dream job is, but I think that working with great people that treat you well, um, that relationships matter, is super important for me. Um, I think that how you treat players. You mentioned this earlier, how it's changed. Well, it has changed. And when I was a player, there were certain coaches that did things a certain way, and others that did differently. And I learned a lot from a lot of them. And it's the same with the coaches I work with now. I think relationships and how you treat your players and getting your players to want to play for you is super important. Because if they don't, especially in pro, you get fired in a hurry. And
Yeah.
because you look at you mentioned jobs in the NHL. I think there was 8 head coaches that got fired this year, and probably more assistant coaches. There's going to be continue to be changes.
Mhm.
So you get used to that, and you kind of roll with the punches. You need to have a good support system, which I certainly do. Very lucky. My wife is uh, great, great for that. Keeps me kind of like, calm down, everything's going to be okay. Um and then I have people that I talk to all the time.
Sure. Well, I'd have to say that's the best team you're coaching for right there. You have your assistant coach, co-head coach, right, and the wife, correct? I mean, good to have a
100%.
good,
Yeah.
yeah. So, um, as far as, I want to talk about that a little bit before we go here today, the different levels, the way when we played as kids and how they are now. You don't really have it old school because they can't. I mean, I use Tortorella. I love Torts, but he's definitely old school, and that's probably why he bumps heads. Can you have? I like to call it. Is there a hybrid type of coaching style now, where you have a little bit of the hard nose, but yeah, you got to be that. These guys are making multi-million dollars as a player, and they're making more than you, and they kind of, in a lot of cases, are directing who's going to coach the team. I mean, they don't like a guy, he's out. They're not going to play for him. And I want to go back to a team that you were there for a little while, Buffalo. I just don't understand that squad, that program. It's a great city, great sports city, but they've been struggling for years with hockey. And I don't know if that's a coaching thing, a personnel thing for players. Um, Thoughts? I mean, as far as coaching, like at a hybrid level, I mean, having a little bit of a sternness, but yet being kind of the buddy type of guy. I mean, how do you do it? How do you do it?
So I'll touch up on that first, and this is my opinion. It's certainly not for everyone, but I do believe that, um, like when you're coaching a team, you know, you're never going to have 22 guys that love the coach. That's not a
Mhm.
thing. If you can get 75 to 80% of the guys that follow you and they follow and they believe in what your word is or how you want to play or whatever you want to call it, um, chances are you're going to have a lot of success. But the problem is if you have the wrong 20% that doesn't follow you, and I'm talking about the better players, the best players, then you're going to be in trouble, and that's just reality of it. Um, so I think understanding that yes, you're coaching a team, but you also are coaching 22 individuals, and they all take things differently. The quicker you can learn those players individually, I think the more success you can have. That's my opinion. Um, when you look at the coaches that you wonder why they recycle coaches. Well, because the nobody understands the pressures that they're under. Nobody does unless you're in the job. I've never been a head coach in the National Hockey League. I don't understand the pressures. Even though I'm there, I still it's a different animal. And coaching in the American League, even though you're a head coach and there are a lot of pressures and so on and so forth, I don't know that it prepares you to be the head coach in the National Hockey League until you jump in with both feet. So, and I think that's why coaches get recycled. It's not, because I think you need to have a certain personality to be able to handle all of that stuff because honestly when you manage you're managing up, you're managing your 22 players, you're managing your assistant coaches. It's and then you talk about everything else with the mental coaches that you have and so it's so much people don't understand that, and nor
No,
should you. And then
I
you
think
talk
the
about the Buffalo Sabre. You Oh, go ahead, sorry, Sid.
No, no, I apologize. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was going to say, I think I always joke. I did a little lift driving here in Winona, where I'm at. There's two universities, your University of Winona, and also Division III school, and a lot of college kids. And I always asked them what their degrees were, right? And if I ever heard a kid had said that, "No, I'm going to psychology," you know, I said, "Don't ever anybody tell you that that's a bad, you know, a bunky degree, because you use psychology every day." And I think as a coach, you almost have to be a little in that, because when you're dealing with young kids or adults, I mean, it's tough. So that's what I was just going to point out when you're talking about these different, the 20%, 80%. You really have to be able to take and have that almost a psychologist type of mentality.
You do. And ironically, you probably spend 80% of your time on the 20% that are a challenge, unfortunately, rather than focus on the 80% that, they're behind you, but that's just, again, that's just the world that we live in. As far as psychology, I mean, most teams now in the National Hockey League have sports psychologists or just psychologists to help all of the pressures. Now we talk about pressures for the coaches, or that's what we're talking about, but the pressures that the players feel are out of this world as well, and a lot of it is from social media or just media in general. Just these are pressures that honestly I never felt one time as a player. I mean, I knew I had to perform, and I did my best to do that, but you weren't reading about it it wasn't in your hand every single day. And with these guys, it is. And I think those are pressures that are really hard to understand unless you're living it. And so a lot of these teams have sports psychologists that are there for the teams. I still talk to sports psychologists all the time that I've worked with in the past, just because it's very important for the players, but it's also very important for the coaches, and just to get different perspectives, different ideas, different thoughts. Yeah, so you talk about learning every single day, and the psychology degree. Gosh, I wish I had one. Although I feel like I've spent enough time with people that I'm getting better at it. Still far from being perfect, but getting better all the time.
Well, I think the one the one player that needs it the most is guys like me between the pipes. I mean, think about like Stuart Skinner and what's going on. Hey, come on, we're goofy as it is, right? But the goaltenders, they're the one that's got, we're the last line of defense. So, yeah, we get in our own minds a lot.
Well, and for good reason. Every time I'm gonna say a mistake, and it doesn't even have to be a mistake, but every time something goes by a goalie, everybody cheers or boos, and
Yep,
the lights go on. There's a big red light behind. I mean, just the
yep,
psychology of it all. I mean, I believe me, I never thought of this as a player, but as a coach, I sure think about it. I'm like, oh man, and you think the defense in front of them can make mistakes all night long, and that light never goes on because they keep saving you, or the forwards, well, they don't even think about defense half the time, and so it's just they could make a lot of mistakes, and nobody even talks about it. So it's just yeah, it's very the game is played between the ears, and you've seen so many great players, whether it's in high school, in minor hockey, in college, in the American League, that never make it, and usually it's because of this. It's
yep, yep.
because that is the most important part of it all, and that's what I believe.
Agreed. I agree with you 100%. I mean, I had a very talented player here. He only played before and after NA3. And I thought, well, he's going to probably play college hockey someplace. And he just he quit. He's done. No more hockey. So I mean, you got to have that mindset and that I don't know the grit if you want to do it. But most of all, that's the biggest muscle we have is in the head. It's in the head. So um, I know we had our struggles today. Speaking in my head right now with the internet on and off, up and down. I apologize and kind of wind this down for us. But no, I really appreciate you chatting a little bit with me today. And I guess the one thing I always like to take from elite level people like yourself that played the game at a high level. What advice would you give to a young man or young woman coming up to you and say, Mr. Lambert, I want to be a hockey player? I mean, what advice, if you had to get some pieces of advice to a young student athlete right now, would you give them?
um I think first thing when that's come up is I always ask them, what's your why? Like,
Yeah,
why do you do this? And I feel like it's so important for them to understand why they do what they're doing, because doing it for because my dad wants me to, or doing it for
mhm,
the wrong reasons. I mean, I'm not going to say you'll never make it, but I'm going to say your odds are it's got to be like are so much against you.
yeah,
The when you think about the struggles you're going to feel and you're going to see along the way, you're going to get cut from teams, and how you handle those, typically the one thing that keeps you going is the love and the passion that you have from within. It can't be for
that's
somebody else, and the work that you have to put in to become a hockey player. You see all these kids that are nowadays they're 9, 10, 11, 12. They've got their own skating coaches, skills coaches. They go to the gym and but but you just mentioned a player. Often by 17, they're burnt out. They're burnt
Yeah,
right out, you know? And so unless you have that true passion, um, so my advice is have fun, enjoy
yeah,
the game, love what you do, enjoy it, smile, do it for the joy of the game. And if you happen to have a passion and then, then sky's the limit. But honestly, it's your why and the love and the fun. Because hockey, it's a game. I don't care how much money you make. I don't care how much money you don't make. When you go out there with your friends, it's supposed to be fun.
yeah,
And as a coach, I think it's so important to keep that perspective because if as soon as you have a team and this was my first when I became a head coach, that was my first thing I said I talked about is I want the players to want to come to the rink. Them getting up in the morning or afternoon and coming to the rink, and if they're driving to the rink and they dread it, you're not going to get the best out of them. And
yeah,
that's just reality. Now that doesn't mean there isn't struggles and there isn't hardship and there isn't, some pushing and driving, but you got to do it in a way where it's respectful and people want to be there.
yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more, 100%. That's probably some of the best advice I've had in all the interviews I've been doing. And that's kind of why, well, it is why I started my little stick company. You see the little logo up there. You can't hardly see it, but Sid Sticks because of a why. As a kid, my grandmother took care of me, raised me, and she struggled,
Right.
working at Polaris at the plant, to get by. So that was my why. I want to give back and help parents out there that are, I mean, that's the change in the game now. I mean, you talk about personalized coaches, you got AAA, you got this camp, that camp. It's gotten crazy, Dan, crazy.
Hmm.
Um, where if you're not playing in these teams and traveling and that, it's like you're isolated. So I find it hard to. It's really difficult for kids now because there's so many different directions that people want them to go. Um,
Hmm.
but I love the game. I love when I coach, and I love doing this. And I couldn't agree with you more. That's probably the best advice I've heard from anybody, and I couldn't agree with you 100% more. So um, I know we had our struggles. Like I say, we're kind of winding down. I don't want to go too much longer with you here. You have a day ahead of you. It's Monday, but I do want to thank you for bearing with me with this today with the internet. That one of the times it's been up and down. But be able to reconnect after 40 plus years, right? I mean, I look back at the time when we were playing in baseball with Guy and Moose, the Goofy brothers, and some fun times. It's hard to believe that, it's time flies, doesn't it? It's just crazy how fast time flies. So all the more reason to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, when I knew I was coming on your show, I was thinking, gosh, played in Vita. I hadn't thought about playing ball in Vita in forever. And then, you mentioned that, and I'm like, my gosh, yeah, that was 40 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
you're right, time flies. You know, it's it's it is, and I think, when you look back, and we're at the age now, we're starting to look back,
Hmm.
um, and of all the, the great times you've had or the not so great times, but to me, it all goes back to the relationships and having the people around you that make you feel good, that make your life a better place, and that's so important. And yeah, I've been blessed, I've been fortunate in my life, I can't even tell you. um and that doesn't mean that there hasn't been struggles and there hasn't been challenging moments. There's been a ton, and I can't tell you how many times when I was in, whether it was in Warroad or in the Western League, with challenges or whatever, I was like, gosh, why am I doing this? Like, what, like, this is so hard and this is so challenging. But you talk about grit and you need that for sure, and you just push through, and the next thing you know, yeah, here you are, right? 55 years old
Absolutely.
now, and hockey's given me everything that I have in life, and I love the game, passionate about it, and if I'm fortunate enough, I'll continue to do it for a little bit longer here.
Hopefully, and hopefully the Flames will make it to the playoffs next year. You guys got a good run. It was close, but the darn Blues went on a terribly crazy run this year. I couldn't believe what I saw there. Left this. unbelievable 11 straight wins. And yeah, it takes a little bit of luck to get to the pinnacle to make it to that top two. So we're going through right now in the playoffs. But yeah, Dan, I really appreciate, well, given what I went through last year too, I really cherish the memories more. I had to go through, I got my cancer thing shirt on today, but things like that, like I'm doing today. I mean, reconnecting with people that I enjoyed being around. And we only played the 1 year up there in summer, but I played against you and some good memories. And following your career, I mean, it's been very proud to say I know you, and that's a part of hockey. The family, as I call it, is a very close knit family. I'm sure you pick up the phone, you can talk to a number of guys you played with or coached with, and like they'll pick up. If they don't pick up, they'll call you back right away. That's what I enjoy so much about the game. And I go home when I go home to Roseau. First place I go to is either the ball field or the arena. They're right next to each other because
Right.
that's my happy place. That's my
Yeah.
happy place. So,
Y-
any final
Yeah.
thoughts, Dan, before we part ways today? I mean, we're gonna cut her, but any final
Yeah.
thoughts
No.
before you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure, honestly. It was a lot of fun, and you bring back the pictures of the St. Malo Arena, and I know they've made or they're making a lot of changes right now to the arena, and my mom still goes to the arena, and she took a picture the other day, and there was a thing on the wall that I didn't even know was there. It was a picture of me, whatever, and I thought, man, I need to go back in that arena. I haven't been in there for probably 20 years or so, so
Yeah.
that's going to give me inspiration to get in there this summer somehow. Even if I have to break in, I'm going to find a way. If I go back, when I go back home, I'm going to get in.
Well, I don't think they'll give you the key to the city to come in there. I'm sure coming back to town at St. Paul. It's been a pleasure, Dan. I really appreciate it. I can't thank you enough for bearing with me, like I say, with the little glitches we had up and down with the internet. But thanks for sticking on and sticking with me, and let's keep in touch. I mean, I'm gonna follow your career still coaching, and hope you guys will make it to the pinnacle. I mean, I'd love to see. It'd be good to see a Canadian team winning the cup. It's been 30 plus years now. It's hard to believe, um, man. But anyway, I want to thank you again for coming on today. Dan Lambert, assistant coach with the Calgary Flames, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Sid. Have a great day, and best of luck
All
with
right,
everything.
you bet.